Hello, everybody. Making bankers go crazy on this show. Welcome to the Cackle. This is Entry Point's weekly interview series where we highlight small businesses, startups, and people who are having an impact on ecosystems across the Midwest. I'm Emily Heinz. I'm the founder and managing director of Entry Point. At Entry Point, we partner with economic development organizations and nonprofits to foster inclusive and vibrant communities across the Midwest through research and community-focused programming. If you want to see any of our latest research, we just released a really cool report on the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Ann Arbor, and then just before that, one in the Detroit area, which Bank of Ann Arbor sponsored, and I was super happy about that. So we're having a little Bank of Ann Arbor fiesta right now. So I have Michael Cole and RJ Grimshaw, both from Bank of Ann Arbor Corporate Finance Group and from the Technology Group. And we're going to talk a little bit about access to capital, banking, like everything that's been going on the last 18 weeks. Hey, welcome.
Well, great to be here.
Yay.
So glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm like very, as bankers, I feel like, are you guys like doing okay? Because like, I feel like every banker I know is just like, I'm pulling out my hair right now.
Yeah, I remember talking to you early on in the pandemic, and you're like, "Are you okay? Are you with all that PPP stuff we had to do?"
Yeah.
I think, I mean, from the banking side, things have calmed down from that point when it was really crazy. But we're busy.
Yeah.
You know, and living in this, trying to figure out, like we were talking a little bit before we came on, you know, how do we meet with customers? Do they want to meet in person, or do they want to meet virtually, or, you know, how are we doing all that? So,
yeah, we've found like in a lot of the business analysis that we've done, we've found that like professional services organizations are like, it's such a customer at like focused industry just for like a lot of professional services that they've actually had a really hard time during the pandemic, even in comparison with other types of businesses, because people are kind of like needing to modify the way they do business so much from like the way they typically do business that it's kind of just been like a constant navigation, which I think people don't really think of. They're like, oh, lawyers, accountants, bankers, like whatever, they're fine or whatever, but seems like it's been a really long road.
Yeah, it's a big change for, you know, specifically, and Michael and I are getting there, that older generation banker where you sat and met with people, and that was just the normal. You never did anything over emails or virtual. So that whole dynamic's changed. And specifically, to answer your question on how we're doing for our group, we finance specifically equipment for businesses. So we've had a, you know, if we rewound 18 months ago, Emily, I was in the same boat as Michael and everyone else, like, holy cow, what's going to happen to these small businesses? And it's amazing to show the resilience of business owners and entrepreneurs in Michigan as well as across the country. And what I view is that the strong got stronger, and you know, people had to pivot. Doesn't matter what business you're in, the whole world changed. Our biggest challenge now is the supply chain. It's taking so long for companies to be able to acquire the equipment. And now the used market, we finance a lot of used equipment. That market is drying up because there's so much demand for it. The supply isn't there. So it's going to be interesting to see how the next, we used to think, okay, how's 2021 going to play out? But we really think now it could play into 2023, the supply chain. So, but again,
screaming.
but again, it just what it does, it brings focus to it. So people that are buying that equipment, they're being extremely proactive and selective and understanding it, and then making that decision to buy it. But all in all, it's been a great year for our group as well.
Talk a little bit about, like, each of you, like, talk a little bit about your background and like what you do within Bank of Ann Arbor.
Go ahead, RJ.
So I'm the president and CEO for Unify Equipment Finance, and Bank of Ann Arbor actually acquired this business unit back in 2013. The business was originally started in 1978, so a lot of longevity, Ann Arbor-based company. Now, however, we do business nationally, but a major portion of our business is in the state of Michigan. So the Bank of Ann Arbor is who provides us our capital to be able to lend out to business owners. across the country. Again, we're specifically equipment focused. That's all we do is finance equipment for the businesses, and it's really a niche because you have to work with vendors and dealers and value-added resellers and integrators and things of that nature. So it's not your traditional just loan where you're just paying someone. There's sometimes we're making progress pays or pays over time as the dealers installing the equipment. And then the nice thing is that we leverage technology, so the process is extremely easy and fast. We use DocuSign for our documentation. And again, it's our specialty. So we know how to get that vendor paid right away and really support the business owner because they have so many things that they're trying to juggle and take care of. And the other thing is our credit underwriting process is a little bit quicker from a traditional bank underwriting perspective. So we use other tools. We're part of a bank, but we're really a little bit different than a bank in terms of the way that we operate our business because we want to work with the same type of speed and execution as typically entrepreneurs do. So, and that's not a knock on banks. It's just different.
Yeah. Although I feel like I came from public accounting and we would always be like, no, we're different. Like, I was like, all of us finance people, I always think we're the different ones.
And it's not the fact because my wife was here, she'd say he's a banker through and through. So
Michael, give a little bit of background on you.
Yeah, so I head up our technology banking area. So we work with tech, life science companies, venture capital firms. A lot of the customers that we have, RJ also will work with. So I was just out at one the other day. RJ, compliments to you guys. They bought a 3D printer financed through Unify. Very excited about it. They're a medical device company. So we work with... So I started the group almost 20 years ago at Bank of Ann Arbor after spending just about 20 years out in California doing kind of multinational banking, a lot of it in the tech sector. And wanted to come back here for family reasons and to just be involved in this kind of next evolution of Michigan's economy, if you will. So we've been involved a lot in helping to build the ecosystem in the greater Ann Arbor area for really the first kind of 10 years of the group. And in the last 10, very much involved in all of Southeastern Michigan, doing quite a bit of work in Detroit. And, we provide banking services from companies that are startup all the way to IPO or mature aged companies, depending upon, whether they're kind of heading in a venture-backed, capital-backed path, or if they're more of like a family-owned and operated, privately owned type of business.
Yeah. I feel like you must have seen it all over the last 20 years because there's been just so much growth in like the tech community during that time. It's like, man, that's like an OG of the tech ecosystem.
It's been really fun to be involved and participating in it. Yeah. So we've come a long way.
And I would love to add, so when I was actually looking at the opportunity to move to Ann Arbor when I was living in Syracuse, New York, to take this position with Unify, I actually listened to a podcast with Michael, and I forget who the host was, but as you're doing due diligence and trying to learn, who, if you really want to, one, move your family to Ann Arbor, then two, the organization you're going to join, I have to say that podcast was actually pretty instrumental in me moving here because I realized that the Bank of Ann Arbor was actually a really progressive entrepreneurial bank. And I am an entrepreneur at heart. My dad was an entrepreneur, several businesses, my grandmother, my uncle. So I just happened to fall into corporate America, but I have that entrepreneur spirit. And that podcast had a lot to do with it, where I love being in the entrepreneur ecosystem. It's just, it's the way I'm wired in my DNA. So
it's funny.
Michael,
me and Michael need to like sit up straighter now during this interview. We're like, oh no, what? Although
a lot of pressure.
People are watching this.
Oh, I know. I'm like, it's gonna live forever on the internet, you say? I always tell people that if they want to like stalk someone in like the Midwest tech community or like the entrepreneurial community, like even small businesses, like just to like go to the Cackle. We've interviewed like 150 people over the last year and a half, and I was like, just stalk them here, and then it is really helpful.
But that's super helpful. We were talking a little before we went on air too. 2 years ago, and we were all going to conferences and doing all that, stalking all the people that you want to meet and everything else, but connecting with people. And so having things like the Cackle, during this period has been great.
Yeah, it's definitely like now that it's not safe to like stalk people from like their windows. Like, no, I just stalk them on the internet, like the good old days. So kind of how have you?
Wait a minute, like the good old days. What do you mean? What do you mean by that statement?
We don't even know. Now that I know this lives on the internet forever, and people
okay, next question.
Clean up our acts. Okay, so talk a little bit about like the evolution you guys have seen in like the entrepreneurial ecosystem, like even just the last like 5 years, and like what you've seen since you guys have kind of like had the New York and California experience, and then coming here and seeing like a lot of businesses up front.
Yeah, I could start. I mean, the last, year and a half, 2 years have been pandemic years. So, but going into that period of time in Michigan, Southeastern Michigan, anyways, I was seeing a lot of growth. So for the first 10 years of the group, there was really a lot of growth, greater Ann Arbor area centric in Michigan, and that ecosystem was building out. And then, going into the pandemic and the 5 years before that, there was a lot of growth. City of Detroit, Grand Rapids kind of started to spread this innovation kind of community out through Michigan a lot. So that's been great.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of like, and a lot of just even in the last year, like the research that we've been doing like on the 2020 calendar year, I was really surprised by like the tech community and their ability to kind of like shift to virtual operations, because a lot of them had used remote workers or already clearly had like the online infrastructure in place. And like a lot of them were fundraising like crazy this last year from like VCs and stuff. It was like, I'm like, okay, like it's not going to kill the tech community, that's for sure. But
yeah.
Emily, do you think what drove that was just it gave a lot of people to the opportunity to internally focus on what they're doing and get behind it a little bit more and say, okay, this is what we're doing, or the opposite, maybe pivot where they could go? And
there was definitely like a concentrated, like any investors, like any venture capital investors that I'm friends with will say like that a lot of what they were doing was working really closely with their portfolio companies to figure out if they couldn't operate in this way, like what way could they like kind of change their business model. I think too, a lot of companies that were like, oh, we're going to either hold off on fundraising or whatever. Then when they were meeting with their investors, they was kind of like, you better like hit the gas or you're going to just be like dead this year. It's
time to go. If we're going to go, time to go right now.
Yeah. It's an interesting time in that respect, because, the government, put out trillions of dollars literally into the economy. So there's a ton of liquidity out there looking for things to invest in. So it's a little bit kind of counterintuitive coming out of a pandemic like this, but relative to like fundraising activity. But there's a lot of money out there looking for a place to go.
Yeah. So like, I think too, RJ, it would be good to hear your opinion on like, it's just such like an uncertain time that I think a lot of people, business owners, are like having trouble deciding exactly like what path to follow. So when they're making these like doing these like big transactions where they need big financing and like things like that, and are trying to like structure things. And a lot of it is like, you're normally like, okay, here's where I would be in 3 years. And that makes sense. But then it's like, because it's been such an uncertain time, it's like, is the pandemic still going to be happening then? Or like, is it going to be done and we can go back to this way? Or like, how have you seen that kind of like play out?
Yeah. So we just had a lot of discussion around that the last 3 days at the meeting I was attending, of just we thought we were going to come out of it, right? And there was going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And then I'm not sure we'll ever get back to normal, but we're going to move forward. And now all of a sudden with the variant, the Delta variant and things of that nature, it's back to uncertainty again. But what we have seen quite a bit of is more equipment being bought with automation because of the employment challenges that large organizations have. So we really have seen an uptick of organizations that maybe were looking to buy that piece of equipment, and now they're adding the automation component to it or the robotic piece to it for the extra $150,000 or $200,000, because again, just the employee shortage, and they know that they can control their business model and control their destiny with that automation, and they're willing now to make that investment. Unfortunately, it is counterintuitive. It is, and we do struggle as an organization with that, because the last thing we want to do is take away anyone's job. That is not what we struggle with it. But now the world that we live in, it's the world we live in, and companies have to make those decisions. So we have seen an uptick in our robotic equipment financing, and we're actually learning more about it. But to answer your question specifically, there has been a lot of companies that aren't sure and maybe have put that equipment acquisition on the back burner. But with the shortages that are taking place, if you put it on the back burner, it's going to be on the back burner now for maybe 16 to 24 months for a new piece of equipment. And if you're willing to buy, or if you're okay with buying used, the prices, use the housing market as an example, it's inflated right now. So you're going to pay 20 to 30% higher prices on that used piece of equipment. So it is different, and I don't think there's a right or wrong. Business owners and entrepreneurs just need to make the decision that they think is best for them and seek guidance from their professionals that surround them. But there's no script, there's no playbook for the world that we're living in today.
Yeah, Michael, what have you you work closely with a lot of startups and smaller businesses that are trying to navigate. How have you been kind of trying to modify? Because I feel like you would have to be modifying your approach and the way you're working closely with those people you have relationships with that have banking relationships and bank at Bank of Ann Arbor. How have you kind of?
We're a real relationship-based bank, and I think it's been even more so during a time like this. So, I could just use an example of a company we've been working with. Again, they're super high tech. They've been able to purchase a piece of this 3D printing machine. Again, that's technology. So so they're a medical device company, and they're able to make some components of their device using this 3D printing machine they brought in house, which is technology that wouldn't have been even available to them a few years ago because of just where technology is. But just working with them on the annual renewal of their loan facilities and things like that, and going through their forecast, which was super hard. Again, there's so much uncertainty. Their forecast that they had 3 months ago was a lot different than the one they've got right now, just because of this Delta variant and what's going on. And so we just kind of go work case by case with these. You got to work through all the details and dig into, what's happening in their business. We recognize, the bank, we're no different. Trying to forecast our business out today versus 3 months and 6 months ago is way different. So, and I think, RJ mentioned a little bit of this entrepreneurial mindset, and I've kind of got the same mindset. I've been an entrepreneur before. So the ability to kind of put yourself in their shoes a little bit when you're talking to them about, what it is, where's your company going? Where's the financing? What can we do with it? How can we help? Those are super important things right now with all this uncertainty out there.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would add to that, during the uncertainty, just like all companies that we talked about, some rose to the occasion, and Bank of Ann Arbor, we rose. I am patting ourselves on the back, but we really showed our strength of being a community bank in the community and understanding the needs of our businesses, specifically during PPP. And we actually were able to earn a lot of business of companies that just didn't get the attention from their bank during the difficult times. And that's the value, as Michael alluded to, the relationship piece of it. So
that's the value of community banking just across the country as well.
True.
Banks are focused on also working with these smaller companies, We have a lot of nonprofit clients that we're having a really hard time getting access to PPP and things like that. But we focus on those, and we have a ton of nonprofit clients that we worked with, and we helped them through all that period of time. And as a community bank, that's just part of who we are and what our mission is working with our community members and trying to build a better community.
Yeah, I feel like there is added pressure for banks that have that reputation as well, because it's like, oh, you're here for us in the good times, like you better be here for us in the bad times. And like you guys have those like signs up. So for people who aren't like local, the best ever. Like there's all these signs where like the billboards are like, oh yeah, like other banks think that like, and it'll be like the name of a local business or something that, and it'd be like, but we know it's this or something like that. Like other people think like tea house is like this, and then we know our local community. So I feel like the spin of like you guys working very closely with the local community, and then like needing to make sure that it's like you're like keeping up that standard during the pandemic has got to be a lot of very difficult. Because banking is just like a risk industry. Like you're just like, is this enough for us? Yes or no? And like during this time, like I don't even know how you assess risk. Like
so people have to remember our profession. We're supposed to be correct 100% of the time.
Yeah.
With loans. 100. Name one other industry other than maybe a doctor or surgery, things of that nature, that we have to be spot on, and there is a character component to that, and that character you're able to identify being in the community and seeing folks and seeing entrepreneurs at a local restaurant or at an event in the community. And that's what Bank of Ann Arbor prides ourselves on, is being part of that community. And when you're emotionally invested, you want to support and help. And that's just runs through the entire bank, that philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what drove a lot of us. It's a big responsibility, but that's what drove a lot of us to work at Bank of Ann Arbor. A lot of us, like myself, have worked with big multinational banks and big companies and things like that. And then just the desire to kind of be much more community focused, and being able to kind of impact, very close to the ground level with things is what drove us here. And so it's like honor and a big responsibility. Yeah.
I definitely think like right now it would be so impossible to like measure risk when it comes to like being a banker. And I do think like repercussions, like people are like always forever talking about like, oh, when the housing market took a crap, it was because all the bankers were just giving money to everyone. Thanks a lot, banks. Which is really paraphrasing what actually happened, but whatever. We do what we want on my shelf. But what advice do you have for like, not necessarily like competitor banks, but like maybe people who are watching that were like RJ, who are kind of like in the banking industry and are like, this seems really cool. Like I'm come from a family of entrepreneurs. Like what should my future career look like? Like what is kind of like your advice that you have for people that are like thinking about potentially wanting to work more with like startups or small business, like in this kind of space that tends to be a little bit riskier?
Right. Michael, why don't you go ahead, take a stab at that first? And
I think that probably the most important thing is just to start to get engaged in the community. You really have got to have feet on the street. You've got to be involved. You can't kind of do this from afar and say, well, we'll sponsor this event and sponsor this event or something like that. That's really how we built this tech banking group, was just getting really actively involved in the community, supporting the community, but being there and getting to know everybody, and building those relationships.
Yeah.
And what I was impressed with within the Southeast Michigan and specifically Ann Arbor is just the networking and people looking out for each other. Where if you have a friend that's a attorney at whatever firm and you need something, if they can't handle it, they'll put you in touch with someone that they know. Or if a company needs a CFO, an interim CFO or a strategic planner, it's just the network, the infrastructure in Southeast Michigan for entrepreneurs is unbelievable. And if you wanted to get into our industry, equipment financing, or on the technology side, I think Michael's spot on. You just have to to jump in with both feet and start meeting and learning and bring energy to it and try and help people. If you just golden rule, if you just want to help people, you'll be all right. Now, can you help everyone? Unfortunately, we can't, and we do say no. But if it's alignment there, you're not going to find an institution and a group of people, not institutions, the wrong word, just a group of people that want to help or figure out a way to. And that's why I'm here, because it doesn't take 2 weeks to get a decision made. If something needs to be, made, you get on a phone call nowadays or a Zoom call and figure it out and get back to that business owner or the person that's looking for something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you guys do like a great job of being like authentically in the community. Like, I feel like, I mean, I've known Michael since like 2009, maybe. Like, how long ago was that? Probably, I'm like, that was like 5 years ago. It was like 15 years ago.
Right.
Is that COVID years or regular years?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So we've known each other for next 200 years now. I have only aged 5 years in the last 1 year. But yeah, like, and I feel like it's not necessarily even because of like a banking relationship. Like, I mean, Entry Point does not bank at Bank of Ann Arbor. So, I mean, authentically,
right.
I mean, like, maybe I should just leave that part out. But but I think like
you can edit that out, Emily. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Edit it out of the live broadcast. But I think that's something like that speaks to kind of the authentic relationships you guys build in that, like, yeah, like I've known you since I like been at Spark and like been elsewhere and like always kind of continued this relationship, and you just like are very helpful and present and like it's not just the like sponsor these things kind of banking relationship where then the service provider swoops in to like try to scoop those clients or something.
And looking to build like opportunities. We're kind of like in the center of a lot of activity now since we've been doing this for a while. So kind of, paying it forward. So we developed a program called Leaders Connect Detroit that we were running pre-pandemic. We did a couple kind of virtual events, but it was really an opportunity to bring a lot of people together that otherwise wouldn't be connecting, and provide some professional content. And then, we also like to have fun to do it. And so things like this Tech City Jam, which we ran for a few years, and just networking events on our Sky Deck here at the bank. But, opportunities to bring our clients together, some of these accountants and other people that we know as well in the community that are just focused on what we're doing and are the part of the ecosystem that we're focused on. We enjoy doing that and think that's a real kind of something that we're kind of uniquely positioned to do. And so we go out there and do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That Sky Deck is really nice too.
Yeah.
So cool.
I would love to add a point though on the whole relationship piece for entrepreneurs, as well as you asked in regards to us. And I learned a valuable lesson. I actually owned my first business at the age of 23. And one thing that I didn't do that if I look back or would go back is seek out a banker that you want to have a relationship and grow that relationship. It's a two-way street with the relationship piece. And the well-run businesses, good entrepreneurs are very proactive with building that relationship with their banker and being proactive with communication and where the business is headed as well. So then when they have that need, it's not a reactionary need. They already have built that goodwill. They've already built the communication style. And I just think that that's not taught enough. It's not taught enough that bankers should be part of your team that you surround yourself with. And it's so valuable. And, to your point, Emily, there's many banks, everyone has choice, and I come from an abundant mindset. There's enough business to be had out there. Do business with like-minded people that you enjoy working with. And entrepreneurs, that's my piece of advice, is build that relationship with your banker right from the beginning.
Yeah, that's and you touched on another thing I wanted to ask you guys about is like just that I think you guys both have like very entrepreneurial like backgrounds and spirits and things. So it's a lot easier for you to kind of like identify with the people that you're working with. Like maybe talk a little bit about that. I know we're like probably going to go over it, but that's okay.
Running over.
Yeah, like talk a little bit about kind of like your entrepreneurial background and like, and I know like we've mentioned like entrepreneurship versus like intrapreneurship, but like maybe talk like what the difference between those things are too.
Yeah. So I've owned, I think, 8 different businesses. Some have failed miserably. Some was very young. Nothing recently, of course, as I've been in corporate America. But I was mentored by my dad, and again was in an entrepreneur ecosystem, so I knew what it took, the discipline of working 7 days a week, the discipline of not going on vacation, the discipline of putting your heart, sweat, tears, everything into that business to grow and follow your vision. And then I just fell into corporate America, and I took that same mindset of entrepreneurship within the boundaries of a corporate organization, and that's entrepreneurship. So it's really having that mindset of that entrepreneur, and then just, you know, you have to think about everything that defines an entrepreneur, a risk taker. You're limited in resources, and you know, Bank of Ann Arbor, we're not a big institution, so at times we do have to be resourcely to get things done, right, Michael? So but again, I just love business. It doesn't matter what business it is. I just love meeting entrepreneurs. I love talking about business. I love talking about vision, challenges, opportunities. It's just who I am.
Yeah, me too. I'm like always say I'm like an entrepreneurship fangirl. Like I'm always like, entrepreneurs, they're so amazing.
I mean,
with your pom poms, go,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no one. It's more like I was in marching band, so it'd be more like I just like flute out like.
We could have had a jam session today with the two of you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. I've been keeping that under the radar with that Tech City Jam. Like everyone's like pulling out their instruments and stuff, and like you guys, okay, people got to know about this a little bit. So I'm just gonna like out Michael here. So it's like Michael started planning this Tech City Jam, and it's like all of the people that are in the tech community that have like musical ability can like come and get together, and it's like, you know, drinks and food and whatever. And it's it was at the Neutral Zone, the one.
Right.
And you know, like it's a chill, you know, it's not like some fancy place where people are going to like clink champagne glasses or anything like that. It's just like go hang out and like jam basically. And I was like, oh God, what is this all going to be about? Like, I was like, it's a bunch of techies like pulling out instruments and stuff. I was like, I gotta see this. So I go there. Michael's a dang aficionado, like plays the oh my God, harmonica. Yeah. And it's like so good. Everyone's like coming in, like singing, pulling out like Bill Mayer's got like the drums and like all this stuff. I was like, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
You should have felt in your element. You should have been right up front of the stage.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, play music.
I know. I was like really like, yeah, this is so fun. It was like the funnest thing though, but I was like very surprised. I was like very shocked by all of these things. Like who knew? Everyone's
well, we got to bring it back next year.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. That is like
that was a fun night.
Like one of those events that is like so fun. So what's on the horizon for like you guys? What's on the horizon for Bank of Ann Arbor?
Well, you know, we just announced that we're buying another bank. First National Bank in Howell. So we'll be, awesome. And so that's going to be our fourth acquisition in about the last 10 years. Small acquisitions, kind of building from our base, you know, building into counties that are next to our county, and continuing to build that out. And then just continue to do what we do in the newer communities that we're getting involved in. So, you know, I keep going down into the city of Detroit quite a bit. So that's a spot that I'm super interested in. I think that's, you know, having the city of Detroit continue to kind of come back is so important for the health of Southeastern Michigan and of Michigan as a whole. So,
Yeah.
we'll, as a bank, we'll continue to do more and more there.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like the bank at some point there, like you're like in Detroit being like, which bank is it going to be?
And what's interesting is across the country, everyone is asking about Detroit. Everyone, it doesn't matter what part of the country I'm traveling, and everyone wants to talk about Detroit and is it coming back and how is it coming back? And, so I'm always a big proponent and telling them all the exciting things that are taking place and come visit. And it's,
the Detroit tech community had a great year last year too. We did, like we just released the Ann Arbor report, but just prior to that, there was like a similar like Detroit tech report. And it is like, like more companies raised capital than had ever raised capital before. And it's like, even during a pandemic. So I think there is like a real momentum building in that tech community too. So
there was a real momentum building in all these kind of networking events and conferences and things like that in the tech community, where more and more of those were taking place in Detroit. I noticed, and then of course the pandemic stopped all that. So hopefully we'll get that charged back up again, because that's so important to have those, again, opportunities to connect and find mentors and, build your network. So hopefully that's going to come back soon.
Yeah, cool. Well, yay. Well, thank you guys so much for being on. Is there anything that we didn't discuss that you want to mention real quick or anything?
No, Emily, you're great at this. You covered everything.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you both so much for being on, and I will hopefully see you soon on the Sky Deck.
All right. You guys.
Look forward to that.
All right.
Yeah.
Ciao.
All right.
Okay. See you guys.
Bye now.
Bye.